So we're coming up on the 6-year anniversary of selling on Amazon, for me personally. So I figured it would be kind of a fun time to talk through the story of my very first experience with selling on Amazon, what kind of videos I was watching at the time, how it went, how much I spent, and all that. So be sure to subscribe down below. I just like documenting my journey for free here, giving away a bunch of helpful tips and tricks. So yeah, thanks, appreciate it. So February 2018, I am working a part-time job at Staples. I was a certified technician. I worked on computers. I took the tax refund that I was going to get from working that job. I still remember it was about $1,300. It was like $1,340. I don't remember the dollar amount. That became my startup capital for, at the time, Amazon FBA private label. I really had very little other than that. I was still living at home. My mom was charging me rent, which is kind of funny, but I think it helped, I guess. And, my girlfriend and I are living together. We have a different lifestyle, right? We're vegan. We're like buying our own food, growing up in a traditional house. There's like not really much for us to eat. So it was like micro moving out simulator, right? Like I had small bills, didn't have a ton of money. So I saw this as an opportunity to be like, hey, you know what? I have this like $1,300. I can go and, make some upgrades to my Jeep. I had a Jeep Grand Cherokee. I liked working on that thing. And I liked bass fishing. I would buy a new fishing rod. Like the typical things you'd be thinking as 18, 19-year-old. And then I'm like, I've been watching all these videos. I think I have to take a deep dive at some point on this. I'm just going to use this as the starting point to try this Amazon FBA thing I've been hearing out. Now, at this time in history, this monumental time in history, I was watching videos from someone here on YouTube that I actually looked up to a lot. His name was Tanner J. Fox. He doesn't really make YouTube videos anymore. You could look it up, look at his old videos. That's the kind of stuff I was watching. And I respected it a lot because it was kind of like how my videos are now. He was just like, this is what I'm doing. Try it if you want. If not, I don't care. And it was very much so like real, genuine. And he really made me believe that it was possible. So that was kind of like, I know you're here watching this video. Maybe you have a few other channels that you're watching. That was it for me. It was like that and a few others, but he was my main, kind of North Star of like, that's what I want to try and do. And so basically, he released a video called How I Made $200-something thousand selling on Amazon as a 20-year-old or something like that. And I watched that video. He highlighted the steps. Right away, it kind of clicked for me. I was like, this is what I want to do. This is my chance to actually design a product, or at least my perception of it at the time. Work through problems in real time, come up with packaging. I liked doing photo editing. I was editing my own photos. And it sounded like a perfect fit for me. So basically, I get Jungle Scout. This is helium. I don't even know if Helium 10 existed then. I'm pretty sure it didn't. I start doing the product research. So I was looking for a product that was selling $5,000 to $15,000 per month and less than 75 reviews. This is like old school, right? And so I find 2 different products that I'm pretty sure are going to be my first products. I was split between them, and they were mobile game controller or a tree swing kit, like a tree swing straps. It was something along those lines, like the actual hardware for a tree swing. And it was essentially a coin flip. I went on intuition and I was like, well, the mobile game controller is going to cost me slightly less to launch. So I just went with that one. I don't even think it was like I have way more confidence in it or anything. It was kind of a crapshoot, and I was just like, okay, mobile game controller, cool. Now, one of the things that I noticed pretty early on, just like traditional private label mentality, was that there were a lot of separate pieces being sold that all went together. They're all in the frequently bought together. And so I was the first one to bundle those pieces together. So I took my $1,300 investment. I went on the hunt on Alibaba, and I found a manufacturer that could sell me both of the pieces that I wanted in one box. So basically there was the part that held the phone, and then there was like triggers that people were buying separately. And until then, mobile game controller, mobile game triggers were basically all being used for this game called PUBG. It's like a battle royale game on mobile. And so I find this supplier. They can bundle it for me. I still remember my cost. It was going to be $4.42 with shipping. So that was one unit, $4.42. I was going to sell it for $24.99. And then all that I basically had to do, the sourcing was so easy because I wasn't actually making changes. I didn't do custom packaging. It was just sell me this, put it in the same box, ship me 300. That was my first order. And if we do the math on that, 4.42 times 300, obviously we know the basic math, but just to be specific, that was $1,326. I had $1,340 or something, and then a paycheck every week. So this was perfect. I know it sounds ridiculous now because it's everything I had, 100% of my, bank account. But at the time I'm like, oh, perfect. Like, this isn't that bad. I wasn't expecting this money anyway. I live off of my monthly or my weekly paychecks. So let's just do it. And I ordered these units, and it didn't take that long either. It was about, I air shipped them because they're so small, boxes about this big. And it only took me about a month to actually go from finding the product, ordering it, and start selling. So I truly was in the bucket of like Amazon FBA in 45 days, like from ground up, build it out. I got my LLC. I got by the way, you should check this out if you want to or care at all. I made a video called I'm a Business Owner, or I'm Starting a Business. This was 6 years ago when I made the LLC, before I knew what I was going to sell, but I knew that I was going to be an Amazon FBA seller. So I documented the whole thing. I even have a video called I think I found my product. I'm in my bathroom with my phone being selfie style. I remember it was after work one night at 10 p.m. And I was I just want to get a video out because I was all excited. But anyway, back to my story. So product comes in. It's May 1st when it goes live. And I'm going to walk you through that day because that day was actually really exciting. So I know that the package has arrived because I got the delivery confirmation. I've been checking the tracking number that my supplier sent me for days at this point. And I can see that it was delivered. And it gets delivered somewhere around noon. So I've had my morning coffee, forget what else I did that day, but I get the notification that it's delivered. It was in my mind, that meant it was going to go active, right away. But it didn't. It actually took a couple hours, and now in retrospect, a couple hours is insanely quick. So I ended up, what happened was I actually took a nap. I remember this. I was it was delivered. I'm kind of tired. I took a nap at this point. Maybe it's 1, 2 o'clock. And then I wake up and it's 3 something and the listing's active. So my listing is on Amazon. And at the time, I don't really know how to put this into words, but it was the coolest feeling I've ever had. This was my first business and people could now find my offer. So the listing went active, and within the first hour, I had sold a few units. It didn't feel effortful. It just felt intuitive and it was easy. And that was my first impression with Amazon. So imagine the impact that makes on you, right? Now, my favorite part about this story is I sell a couple more units that evening. I go to bed. When I wake up, I see that I have made $375 while I was sleeping. That was in sales. The profit was $199. In fact, it was. I remember the exact number. I had a little Excel spreadsheet broken out. And we were, the profit margin was really high on that product because it was $4.42. It was small and light, and it was $24.99. So FBA fees were $4. Cost was $4. So I was left with $16, $17 for every unit. And then it was amazing, right? But anyway, I made a video about this. Again, the documentation strategy of my journey has been awesome because I can go watch the day after I started selling my first Amazon product 6 years ago. Again, you can check it out if you want. It's called I made $375 or something on my first day selling. I was so stoked. I was through the roof. And honestly, the next month was probably one of the funnest, is that a word? One of the most fun months of my life. Just from an overall perspective standpoint, and that's over exaggerated. My life now is actually cooler. But at the time, it was just this huge juxtaposition of, I don't know what I'm going to do with my life, and I'm a part-time employee. I just graduated high school, and I know I'm not going to college. Not super confident that any one thing's going to work. And then all of a sudden, by the way, that was only the beginning of how the sales went. they stayed on that path for months. So I was making hundreds of dollars a day in profit. Keep in mind, at this time, I'm making like a good week of my part-time job would be like $250 after taxes. So I'm making that every day now, like that. And I have to reorder and I have no money left and I'm not going to get paid in time. So I actually borrow money from my girlfriend. And it was the same amount as the first time. It was like $1,300. She too was working a part-time job, just saving her money like me. And I eventually pay her back. Anyway, and then, I start making enough money in the balances, in the payouts to start paying for inventory plus the profit, etc. But yeah, it's just crazy. That was my first experience, and that gave me so much confidence in this business model. And it's been a really wild ride from how I got from there to where I am now. And there was actually, it's kind of like the valley of despair between then and now. Again, I might be over exaggerating, but there was a lot of failed products in between there. It seemed like every other one I launched, despite doing everything that I thought was right, was not working. So I was hitting these roadblocks, and like I kept getting swarmed by competitors that just sold exactly what I'm selling for less. And so I think that experience, if you've sold on Amazon before, you'll relate to it. Can be overwhelming, and you can feel like, oh, the business model's broken. So fast forward 6 years, and now what am I doing now with all that experience and knowledge that I gained from the past 6 years of selling on Amazon? And it was like, I just knew that I had to. Oh, let me wrap up that story before I'll come back to the side note. That happened. So eventually, people just started selling the bundle I was selling for way less than me. Profit went down to basically not being worth reordering within about 4 or 5 months. But the previous month before people came in, glorious. I went to the Caribbean. I traveled. I did all the stereotypical you have no money, you just started making money stuff. Went to the mall a lot, and I was just using my money very poorly. Not the right thing to do. I should have been thinking about the business, reinvesting it. But keep in mind, I'm a part-time employee. I'm a teenager, and I'm now making this much money. I just thought I was going to do this forever, and every product that I put out was going to be able to compound on this. So my expectations were greatly skewed. Now, to get back to what I was saying, the only path out of that is to make it so that the customer has to buy it from you if they want your product. There's a word for that. It's called proprietary. So what's proprietary about your product? What do they have to buy from you? And the feeling in the story is one of the best ways to do that. Because despite even patents and almost everything, if people try enough, they can create a pretty similar product to yours and maybe even better than yours. But the story, the branding, the packaging, the feeling the customer gets when they interact with your brand, the way you present it to them is super important. And so I shifted from this private label, cheap Chinese product model to a brand building model, which is focused on US sourcing and non-corporate messaging, storytelling, and communication. So what I mean by non-corporate messaging is that for some reason, you start a company and you think it should look like Kellogg's or it should look like Coca-Cola and it should be corporate. But that's not what consumers actually want from a small brand. The reason people rally behind a small brand and a small brand becomes a big brand is because it feels more like a personality. So once I figured that out, I threw everything I knew out the window, because believe me, when I say this branding thing, I thought that I knew what branding was and that I owned a brand prior to this several times. So when I found this successful product, we're doing $36K per month right now, about $300 to $500 a day in profit. So yeah, that 34.26 right now. But the day's just starting, so by the end of the day, we'll probably do another $1,000 on top of that. And so that even the brand building model was a evolution that I had to undergo, because initially I just thought branding was having a name on the product and not just using the supplier's packaging. But then I started doing really clean packaging and just the name of the product and a picture of it. And again, that's not really telling a different story, that's very corporate. It's very, there's no personality in that. So after my first few failed branding attempts, I went the total other direction, and I was like, what would this product have to look like, and how would it have to function for it to be a no-brainer for customers to buy it from me, and for them to actually want to come back and buy it again, and for them to want to tell their friends about it. How is it that good? And now that's the opposite of corporate. That's where you start adding personality. So I went very, very edgy with my product in a market that you would never think of doing that in. And there is a character that we paid hundreds of dollars to be designed. That's not that much money, but I mean, we split tested different characters, like brand mascots that are on the packaging. In that, you think of personality. So we put a persona on the packaging for a point of view so customers could connect to that persona. So the moral of the story is that, you can still have these random hit successes. They tend to only last a few months. I've found in my experience, building something big, successful, and durable, at least in the way that I want to feel good about it, that's fun for me to do. I don't necessarily want to have like my thing be expert sourcing at the cheapest price from China. It doesn't drive me. I don't feel connected to that model in any way. Having 100 SKUs all in, like, you're just mastering sourcing and pricing, and your creative's okay, but realistically you have the same product at the end of the day as everyone else for the most part. And you're just relying on the cheapest cost. Again, that doesn't move me. So like I had to shift, and when I talk about these things, keep in mind, I'm just sharing my experiences. This isn't like advice, and I'm not saying any other way is necessarily wrong. The data is there for what my experiences have been. And so I've logged that and made changes appropriately. And I've also just followed my intuition and my North Star towards like, what do I really want to build? We all have the same time, right? Now you might have different time commitments, but literally the sun will set for everyone at the same time today. I don't want to spend my most valuable asset, my time, working on things that I'm not truly and deeply connected to. It's just, I crave freedom. I'm very freedom driven. And so with that, I wanted to build a brand that I was so confident in that I would promote it and market it and work on it in a way that it would guarantee that it was successful. So if any of this sounds cool, I have a pay what you want course down below for more information on the brand building aspect. There's like 20 something videos in there. You can join for anything over $1. You click the link in the description. So knowing that I'm guided by this North Star and following my intuition, craving freedom, building something I can be proud of, and knowing that at the end of the day, the customer has to buy my product for me to make money. So how do I create a scenario in which it's very likely that they choose mine over the competitors every time, and make that last so it's not for 3 months, but it's for decades? I want you to think about what that is for you and comment down below. What are you pulled towards doing? What do you want to build? Let's just start there and see if we can, in the comment section, talk through some of where you're trying to get and maybe what's blocking you. Comment down below. I want to hear from you. And subscribe so you don't miss my next video. I will see you in the next one. Later.